I'm Michael,
And I'm Drew.
and this is the Outward Realms podcast, and we're back for our first of two March 2022 episodes. And we're going to kick things off with Drew giving a little bit of a recap of the Outward Realms meet and play that took place in Sacramento this previous Sunday.
Yeah, no, it was super cool. We got to go down there. It's my first time that I've ever been to Hammerhead Games. Great store. Love the play area that they had there. And yeah, I got to watch some demos happen. Got to meet some new players. And one of my favorite things is taking a look at all the armies because you've got everything. Everything is fully painted on display there. So it was really cool to like get the close up of like, oh yeah, do I want to pick this up or like,
Yeah,
right? Like, what's the
and
thing
you
you
did
want?
get in your first game with Nightfall, as I recall.
I did, yeah. I got to test out the Nightfall army. I'm a Hex player at heart, but the robots, I've slowly sort of creeped into my like. But yeah, no, the game was certainly interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
that's great. And you were playing against Thornhide, LVO champ.
the LVO champ, yep, with the good old Batra.
Oh, of course.
Yep, I got to experience the Easter egg firsthand, which was oh boy, was it an Easter egg.
I'll bet it was. Oh no, not like this.
Exactly.
So that's great. I'm going to give everyone a really cool reveal for the listeners of the podcast. That was the last game that is using an old rule.
Yeah, the old armor
Something
piercing rule, right?
something's changing.
Uh
Yeah,
oh.
Drew knows about this because he's on one of the playtest teams. But this is a preview, like I said, for anyone who's listening to the podcast. You get to hear it here first. Armor piercing is changing in the core rulebook. The 1.0, the big
Ooh,
new version.
the new version, yeah.
Yeah, so previously armor piercing, for those that don't know, I'd be surprised that you'd be listening to this podcast, but if you're not aware, it meant that your armor save was reduced to only a 6, and on a d6 roll of a 6, you passed, otherwise you took damage.
Yep.
And for a long time, that was fine. It was simple, it was easy to remember, and with everything balanced the way it was okay. As time has gone on and things have changed, more and more it became an issue. And so to address this issue, armor piercing is getting a new facelift, which is armor piercing is now a -1 modifier to your armor save. In addition, if you are a construct unit attacking, so if you have the construct unit type and you're performing the attack, it's an additional -1 for your attack. That means constructs making attacks are -2
Yes.
to represent their heavier weapons and their more
Absolutely. Those big cannons hanging off in between their
those Hexagota
Yep.
bone rams.
Absolutely.
Bone rams.
Mm,
So yeah, I hope that everyone gets excited for that. That's one of the big changes happening in the core rulebook, and we're very, very excited about it. Everything is being readjusted to reflect this, as well as the new missions, because the missions are doubling in number.
yeah, the missions actually are one thing that I'm extremely excited about. But the units too, absolutely. I feel like it's a great change for the game. Things last a lot longer.
Yeah.
And you get to use your models more, right? Like picking up models off the table almost as soon as you put them on is not fun, right? Like we don't have any experience with that. What's that? So
It's not ideal. So yeah, that's great for everybody. Now we've talked about the new armor piercing. I'm gonna go ahead and just kick things off with. I guess we're going to kick things off, but I'll kick things off again with the Hexagota lore.
yes, this is what I want.
It's the macro scale lore overview, and then we'll do some listener questions. But let's talk about the Hex. So they are definitely one of the more alien races in the game.
Absolutely. Should I like skitter?
Yeah, little chitter noises.
Mhm.
Excited bug
Excited.
noises.
Excited bug intensifies. Like
They are from a moon, a little cold methane moon, similar to Titan in our own solar system. And they lived there their entire existence up until very recently. They did not have an alphabet. They did not have technology
interesting.
in a way that we would kind of like
Oh, sure.
mechanical
Okay.
technology,
Yeah.
electricity, all those things.
hmm
They did not have any of that stuff. They were very busy doing siege warfare. So the queens are very large. They live underground in special layers. They're not really mobile. anymore.
Okay, I didn't know that. All
Yeah,
right.
they're attached to this mechanism, biological mechanism, which just basically has them churning out hex eggs,
Okay.
right?
And did the hex eggs like vary in size, or is it all sort of like?
No, hex eggs are very interesting.
Hmm.
They're actually what it's going to be isn't decided when the egg is made.
Whoa.
They're
Okay.
all generic until a queenling tells it what to grow up as.
Wow. All
Yeah.
right.
Which also they're genetically agnostic, which means hexagota do attack each other and do take eggs because
Oh,
it'll work whenever the queenling implants the genetic
makes
primer.
sense.
It functions, but
Okay.
all hex are at the base level genetically compatible.
Ah,
So yeah,
cool.
it's a resource that they would take from one another.
That's awesome. So then certain pods of hex will like store
Oh
eggs of
yeah,
that type and just be like, okay, now we need some more of this. All right, well, let's
yeah.
go into
We
storage
need
and
warriors. We need wind
wow.
warriors. We need something, right?
Okay.
So they make what they need as they go. The queens were down there. They, for the most part, they aren't killed very often. They're not lost very often.
Okay.
They live very very long lifespans. They don't die of old age. Put it that way,
Interesting.
right?
Okay.
They live a long time,
Sure.
and so they were down there. They had these massive hives on the surface, and they were engaged in this very peculiar form of siege warfare with one another for a very very long time. The queens themselves are a psychic creature. So, and what I mean by that is they have some capabilities which would be they're not technologically based. Um, they can communicate real time to any one of their brood anywhere on the surface of their planet,
Okay.
and actually that propagated out into the stars. As it turns out, there's not a distance limitation for their communication.
Oh wow. Okay, so they figured that as they've gone into space, they've discovered
Well,
that
they
they
never
can.
thought of that it would be a problem anyway.
Right.
They just it continued to function
Wow.
even though it breaks the
Oh.
laws of physics,
Right.
right?
Right.
And
Interesting.
so they're the only faction in the game from a lore perspective which has faster than light communication.
Crazy. That's
Yeah.
that is that is what is the line mind boggling to like think about like that's like wow.
So
Okay.
yeah, so these queens were down there and communicating with their hives, and they store their information in a genetic memory.
It's like a big brain or something.
Let's think of it as like a psychic computer.
Okay.
So they have their own private store of information, and then they have the genetic knowledge of all Hexagota.
That's
Yeah,
yeah.
so it's kind of
Cool.
interesting.
Yeah.
Now, that's a peculiar feature of that race, right?
Right.
They have these capabilities. The They were doing their thing. They were completely because Titan is covered in like a thick methane smog. They can't even see the stars. They were unaware that space existed.
Wow. Okay.
They'd never seen a star. I
That
mean,
yeah.
they knew something
There's
was
something
kind
out
of
there, but it
there
never
because there were asteroid impacts,
right. Something's
but
coming
like they
in.
didn't really understand. Like they knew that sometimes hot rocks would fall from the sky, but like they didn't put one and two together.
Mm-hmm. But it
Like they
never mattered
know
to
they know their planet is round,
right.
but like it's like little things like that they know, but it didn't matter that much to them.
Exactly. Yeah. It
Yeah.
didn't matter to them. Yeah.
Yeah, they did. You don't need advanced mathematics when you instinctually know the count of everything you have, right?
Right.
Um, and you don't have an education system when you're born, linked to a genetic memory.
Sure, yeah, and you're born basically knowing what you need to do
What
and
you
how
need
to
to
do it,
know.
and you just do it, and
Yeah,
that's
the
it.
only things that really innovate are the queens and the queenlings. Now that's
They're not they're two different things, right? The queens and the
completely,
queenlings.
yeah. So the queenlings are the little mobile queens,
Okay, and we see
right?
those in the game,
You
right?
see those in the game.
Okay,
They have a very specific purpose in the Hexagota life cycle, which is so a queen has no limit to how many queenlings they can make, but every queenling is a risk.
okay,
Because what a queenling will do is it'll get more experience, it'll get stronger, And then over time, at some point, it will make a pet try to take out the queen.
Oh, okay.
And if it succeeds, it becomes the new queen.
Wow.
That's the only time you really get a new queen now.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
And so the queenlings would then grow to a certain size, or do they
They
only start
there is a
growing after
royal
they?
jelly style substance that they
Sure.
they they get, and it changes their, they go into a larger form. They grow
Interesting.
and they
Okay.
molt their carapace and they just get
Cool.
really, really big. And they become the new queen. So
Yeah.
that's the risk that a queen runs is every queenling is like a force multiplier. And it's a psychic beacon and a repeater. And it's their way to enact their will outside of a hive. But the more you have, the more you're running that numbers game.
Yeah. The more chances you have of them getting powerful enough to like,
Correct.
oh crap, here
Well,
she
and
comes.
they can pull creatures from the main brood and make them only under their control, and then they make an assault.
Oh, and there's the coup,
Yeah, the
as it were.
coup, right? A very deadly coup,
Wow. Okay.
and it's not always successful. Queens are pretty smart. Every
Yeah.
every
Turns out.
queen that's around now did the thing,
Yep.
right? So they're very distrusting of queenlings. But
Interesting.
they need them because they can't leave
Yep.
the underground warren.
Wow, that's cool.
So there's this friction there.
Interesting.
And they fight each other. Well, they fight each other still because they still believe that a constant eroding of any weakness or loss of strength of their like keeps the brute strong, right?
Sure.
So like if they have nothing else to really battle, they'll battle one another just to make sure there's nothing.
There's no weakness. They've got.
Yeah,
Yep. Yep.
yeah, absolutely. But now, because of what happened, there was a circumstance that changed everything.
Yeah.
Weird
Tell
how
us.
that
Tell
weird how
us.
that happens.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
A realm vessel, uh, New Cartographers is an organization that goes to the stars. They keep the star maps up to date, as you might imagine. Surveying a galaxy is a big job.
Yeah. Just a little bit.
These folks help make that happen. And so they were surveying this remote, never been surveyed before system. Unfortunately, their ship crashed onto this planet, which was very bad news for them because it was deeply inhabited by the bugs we know and love.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like the What was the Vin Diesel movie?
Oh,
The yeah.
yeah.
It's
Pitch Black.
Pitch Black. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to like
No, no,
totally
that's what
derail you, but yeah, I was like,
that's
oh, it's just like yeah. We've seen those movies before, so
we
we know
have.
we know what happens to them.
Yes. Yes, we have. And so they reverse engineered. Well, for one, they figured out that there's space. They figured out there's technology. They figured out there's aliens all in one
The Hex did. Yep.
package.
Yep. Dang.
And
The
so
whole kit and caboodle.
yeah, so the queens put a hiatus on fighting one another on the planet. They said
Wow.
this is this is a really big deal. Let's learn more about this first because we can keep fighting anytime. That's fine. We're used to it. But right now, let's put our resources into understanding what is literally landed on our laps.
Yep.
And they took some time and they figured out that as they got deeper and deeper into it that they were one moon in this massive galaxy. The ship had really up to date maps,
Right.
and they're like, there's multiple alien races, and any one of them, if they found us, could eliminate our entire race casually from Earth.
Wow. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
that is an existential threat.
Oof.
Well, the queens don't like that.
Yeah, that sounds bad.
They have some feelings about it, strong feels,
Yep.
and so they reverse engineer only what they need out of that ship, which is the capability to calculate FTL jumps and the blink drive system, because that you can't make a biological gland, which will open up a wormhole, as it
Yep.
turns out.
Yep. Not yet, as it were.
It's
Well,
not yet.
yeah, that was the no spoilers there. I'm just trying to. I'm
No, no,
spitballing
no,
here,
no.
right? Like,
But no, that's a thing they can't do. So they went ahead and they built, their crude reproduction of that FTL system and got out of their gravity well and mined their solar system and built up their fleet. And the one interesting thing about the Hexagotas, unlike any other race, for this period of time, every member of their race was doing one job, which was furthering this activity.
That's
So
crazy.
there was an insanely productive period.
They were unified.
Yeah, just for a little bit.
Yep. Yep.
And they got their ships built up and they started spreading out a little bit. And then the queens came up with a plan. Okay, we need time to build our version of the Manhattan Project, which is like a form of deterrence which will prevent any other race from eliminating.
Right.
Because the queens still don't want to leave the planet. They're not comfortable
Yep.
leaving the safety of that. They're very powerful but very localized. Right there, right?
Yep. They're stuck where they are.
Yeah, they
Ish to a
could
point.
technically move, but the problem with that is it's a very high risk maneuver, and the queens are very risk averse,
Absolutely.
right? And so they went ahead and built many, many, many fleets, just one right after the other. Growing. It's based off the Hexapod chassis. It's a hexapod spaceship, like these gigantic spaceships.
I can't wait to see it. I'm
Yeah,
excited.
these giant ships. Well, you can see them inside of the TTS module of the game.
Oh, cool. And that's for Acta, right?
Yep, for active call to arm.
Excellent. Excellent.
And so
Okay.
they built these up, and then because our FTL is very fast, they put them in position. They spent about 4 years getting them into position, just in dead zone, not near any other systems, but one jump away. So within 400 light years of their actual
Sure.
target, but just sitting there in space doing nothing.
Yep. Yep.
And
Not giving out any signals or anything. Just like
no,
a
and then
derelict
well, I
something.
mean, just cold,
Yeah.
right? They're not giving out, and so no one was really looking. Obviously, no one ran into them. They
Yep.
were they were careful, and because they have the ability to perform that coordination in one command, all of them jumped in and attacked simultaneously
Across the galaxy.
across the galaxy. All over the
Oh,
place.
that's so cool.
Yeah. And so that was a really bad day for a lot of planets.
Yeah. This is well, everything's coming up Millhouse, and then all of a
Everything was
sudden,
coming up Millhouse.
and then all of a sudden, everything's oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was a real problem. And so that was their massive ambush attack, and then that's how basically every other race discovered this race was when
Cool.
they showed up and started attacking.
We tell the realm to take better care of their cartographer ships, right? Like,
Well, and
well,
there's a peculiar, creepy little thing about that too.
oh,
So normally, when you manufacture the core drive system of one of these ships, there's a harmonic, there's a resonance frequency that
okay,
makes every ship unique. So if a ship is in the register, a realm ship specifically,
okay,
Botcher ships don't have this signature,
interesting. All right,
their signature list.
yeah,
Ours have that signature as part of it. We probably could engineer it out, but it's a lot of effort. It's easier just to live with it. It's
sure.
just part of every single one's a little tiny bit different in a way that's measurable. And so when a ship is in the register and it jumps in, that gravitic pulse, you can tell what ship did it
Interesting.
because you
Okay,
match the signature to the mass that of the basically. So when it comes in, the wormhole collapses. By how rapidly it collapses, you can measure how much mass came through it, and
okay,
then you look
wow.
at the mass, and then you look at the signature, and you know what ships are there.
Is this real science, or it sounds
Well,
like
yeah,
real science?
well, yeah.
Yeah.
That's we. There's a little real science in it.
Yep. Yep. Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Yeah, and so they can
Cool.
they can measure that. Well, every single Hexagota ship has the same signature, and
Oh,
it's the Magellan, which is the lost
the
cartographer
lost
ship.
cartographer
So they
ship.
know what happened basically.
Wow. So the realm of they've looked into it. I'm sure they
Well, I mean,
did.
they knew right away because it showed up in the Magellan, but hundreds of them
Yep.
know, and they saw they were aliens. And now, anytime that register comes up, they know it's X signal.
That's so funny. Do they sit there and they're like, "Is it more Magellans? God,
No, no,
God,
they just
curse those
they just
Magellans!"
they
Right?
just
Like,
know it's a hex, and they know how much mass comes through.
yes,
But at least they know, right?
that's so cool.
Yeah. Now it doesn't always help you because they tend to show up, a lot. But
Yeah, yeah. Well, and then not only do they show up a lot, but there's also a lot of them as
right,
well.
yeah.
It's like a
So
clown car when
yeah,
the
it
ship
just never
lands, like
ends. But I wanted to share that. I thought that was a
that's
neat thing.
so cool.
Yeah, so they're working hard on their secret project. Yeah, and they are the only race right now that has access to that cool psychic.
Yeah, yeah, that I can't wait to see where this goes. But this story to Mike, you pushed me on, and that's kind of where I fell in love with them. Was like, man, this is cool because you have that sort of like xenomorph like style, that like look, right, like that Tyranid sort of like 40K vibe, but yet there's more nuance to it. There's like smarts behind it, right? Like there's a mission rather than like we're just gonna kill everything,
Right. It's
right?
more than just
Yeah. And we've seen them do that, right? With like
yeah.
getting ships built and things, like they put all war aside. Having said that though, when we get to questions in this segment of the podcast, I've got a lot of questions for you
I'm
about
sure you
Hexagota.
do.
So
I'm sure you do. We're almost there. I wanted to give a little bit of insight too. Noah is on our Discord. He's one of our Messenger Guild folks, one of our nice community helpers, and I really appreciate what he does for OR. Thank you, Noah. He he had a question about the new uh, the new nuance isn't the right word. The tactical differences between the different swarms.
oh, interesting. Okay, yeah, like how they function, like what do they
Yeah, and
do
I was
specifically?
explaining to him that they're not dumb, right? The
Sure.
Queenlings are pretty smart. Well, a Hexagota warrior is about as smart as a smart dog, right? It's
Okay.
not very intelligent. I mean, it is intelligent. A dog can be pretty smart. They
Yeah.
understand up to 150 words. They obviously can do tasks,
Yep.
et cetera, et cetera. They can problem solve,
They can see when something is wrong or
Sure,
like
and they have
feel when it.
object permanence. They
Yep.
have all these things, right? But a Queenling is like a smart human,
Okay.
right? Maybe more,
Sure. Like,
right?
are we talking like Elon Musk? I'm just
No, no, no.
kidding.
Every single yeah, little Elon. No, no, but like a smart, a really smart human,
Sure.
just with an alien intellect. And so I was explaining, the Obsidian Swarm, they do psychological warfare. They do things that
Okay.
are ambushing, right? Like they'll injure a person and then drag them away and leave them alive, hoping you'll come grab them so they can ambush you,
Oh, got it. Yeah,
right?
like you have the scare
Or
tactics and
exactly, or like they'll send a few winged warriors at places that are encamped
sure.
to keep them firing and keep them going, but like not enough to actually do anything.
Sure.
And then they'll send a big wave,
Oh, all
but they
right.
won't let them get any rest. They'll just keep peppering them with enough that they have to keep on alert
Sure.
for like days on end,
Whoa.
and then they'll hit them when they're tired because they have an understanding that humans need sleep, need rest,
Food
and
and rest and all that. Interesting,
yeah,
interesting.
food is no brainer, but like
Right.
actually, Hexagota don't sleep, so that's a
Oh,
pretty big weakness for us.
yeah. They
I
can
mean,
always be.
they can sit immobile and they can kind of rest parts of their brain if they need to, but for the most part, they don't
They just
care.
do it 90
Only the
nothing.
Queenlings really need to do that,
Sure.
and they can go, days, weeks without having,
Sure.
right? So they're from a operational standpoint, they remain performative for a very long period of time
Got it.
compared to even an augment. An augment, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days in a row, like it's they're still a person.
But after a time, they will start to falter
Yeah, I
because
mean,
they.
their performance degrades slower,
Yep.
but they still degrade.
Absolutely.
And so I was explaining they have these different.
That's awesome. Yeah, my favorite of the tactics are the B tier swarm, and they stop the realm with jump scares. Like that's all they do
It's
is.
all corn mazes
Yep,
and
all
then
corn mazes and
volunteers
jump
that pop
scares.
out.
Exactly.
I think you led us in really well to questions. So go ahead and hit us with yours.
Sure. So my first question was queens are right. The queens are at war,
Yeah.
constantly. Um, they work together to start building these ships. Um, has that fragmented now? Right, like because obviously someone can bring a hex army to a hex army and they'll start fighting, and there's many different reasons why that might be. But is it not collective anymore? Like hitting all of these places at once, sort of like the Nefal, where the Nefal, when we talked about them, they sort of like each of them have their own ideas of like how to deal with
Yeah.
things
And we'll
differently.
talk about them in the next episode.
Oh, that's right.
We'll do the
Cool.
max scale.
Absolutely.
No, on the homeworld, their siege warfare has ended.
Oh,
Everywhere
okay.
else they fight, but they're doing the thing.
Cool. That's awesome. That is exactly what I was looking for.
Yeah, they're unified on their homeworld, their
Excellent.
home moon.
The moon. Yep. Yep. Cool. Well,
What
thank
else you
you for
got?
that. No, that's about it. I
Okay.
that was the key thing for me was are the queens still fighting together? Have they started working together? And it sounds
Yeah.
like they have, but of course
Hmm.
they're what is it? It's like a Zoom meeting from home, right? Because they're all
Yeah.
psychic, right? Like, we're still going to be separated from everyone, but we're putting our resources together
Yeah.
to go out.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
So I'm gonna. These are not the ones we've done in the previous two episodes. Were kind of scattershot. These ones are done unified by user. So if you don't hear your question come up for this month, it'll show up in the next episode. Okay. So Wichita asks, "What do the Hexagota food fungus taste like? What does the Hexagota food fungus taste like? And would it kill you if you ate it?" So I don't know what it tastes like. Hard to describe tastes in that way, I guess. But it would it kill a person if you ate it? Yeah, it's full of a bunch of things that would be pretty bad for a person or a Batra. The Nightfall don't consume biomatter in that way, so it's pretty much Hexagota food only.
Interesting. Yeah, and you said did we talk about like if they bleed, right? Like what their blood is made of, I
Yeah,
think, right? That's like they're like
that,
flammable stuff, right? It's
yeah, they're
like
very
motor
flammable.
oil essentially.
Right? Yeah, ethyl chain based chemistry.
Okay.
So and they asked. So yeah, to answer your question, yes, if a person tried to eat my cell, they would die, or at least be like really poisoned. I don't think it's a fatal condition. Like you could probably get medical help and get out of it, but it's full of like stuff that's really bad for you. Like if you drink, a couple swigs of motor oil,
Right.
you're gonna have a reaction.
Absolutely. It's like a Tide Pod times 20,
Yeah,
right? Like
just
don't down
and
those.
it looks like
It looks like candy. It looks like the most delicious thing you'd ever eat, but you can't have it.
sautéed. No, don't do it. Steak. It's a trap.
It's a trap, exactly. Oh, I love it. I love it. That's a great question though. Oh, cool,
Can
cool.
can the hexagota get sick and diseased? Get cancer? Uh, in the same way that a bug can, yeah. So bacterium, viruses, those can affect insects. They could be affected by that. I don't think they would get cancer. Insects, to my knowledge, don't really get it.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you that. I was like, I don't
I
think I've ever
don't.
heard of that
I don't
happening.
think they do. So if I'm probably wrong. I'm sure maybe there's like some rose tarantula that's pure cancer. Like, but like but unless I don't know something, I'm actually saying no.
I I just picture a tarantula walking up and be like, right, like it just does a little
It's all
cough and just
sad.
walks away.
It's just dead.
Yeah. Oh,
Always
like
looking. It's always looking for.
right, but like the ants with like the so you're telling me that the realm actually could stop the hex. They just need the plant that like grows
Oh yeah,
into the
that.
bug and takes it over,
When you're
right? Like
talking about a race that weaponized a fungus, I don't think that's probably the move.
yes.
You want to give them a brain control fungus? I mean,
That would be so cool.
I guess that's a thing you could try and see if it works out for you.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I guess we get back to the question. Do they get sick? Is that
Yeah,
kind of
so bacterium viruses, sure, but I don't think
okay?
they. And then the do augments get sick? And of course, yeah, they're still people. Their immune systems are when they're in their full prime. They're better than ours are than a regular person's, and they also take to their vaccines and everything well. But of course, they could still get sick and still get
Right, right,
old
right.
and die of old age. What I think is also I want to give a little caveat to that, a little side piece, which is the reason why their immune system is so robust is because they travel to all these different places. When a person in the realm, a regular human, travels from point A to point B, part of that travel are inoculations and vaccinations and things for that. Like, let's say you're going from one world to another, you would get vaccinated and stuff for like the bacteria and viruses that might be a problem in that world,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
right?
There's one of my
Yeah,
favorite. I'm so sorry to cut you off. One of my favorite stories has that aspect of it as well. Traveling from planet to planet, you have to like acclimate, right? Because like not all suns in the galaxy are going to give off like the heat
right.
that our sun gives off, right?
Yeah.
We still might be able to live on the
Well, and
planet,
what
but
about
that
and gravity
exactly
and
gravity too.
oxygen level and
Mhm,
all these
mhm.
things, right? And so there's like a shock period where you have to adjust. Even though they're all Earth-like worlds, they're not all Earth, right?
Yep.
And so yeah, you would get those things. Are chemical and or biological weapons, ones that don't ruin golden worlds, I'm going to come back to that, banned under the edicts during interhouse conflict? So the argument you have to win is that your chemical or biological weapon didn't permanently damage the planet, and you get to answer the question to the angry people who show up to ask why you did it.
There you go. Or the angry Batra that suddenly pop out of the mist and say, "Why are you doing
Well, the
this?"
bots don't care about the edict. You can just
Right. Well,
do
that's true.
regular. You can just do regular, and they'll show. But the houses don't really take the risk because the beggars are very very strict, and they're hard to convince that if they hear about it and they show up, they're going to look for anything, and if they find anything, so unless your weapon leaves absolutely no trace, which doesn't really seem plausible,
Yeah.
like um, then you're going to be in some trouble.
Right.
So they stick to conventional warfare, which is still damaging but doesn't permanently damage. Right?
Yep.
Explosions, bullets, rockets.
Yep. Not like poisonous gas that would like sit in this one
I mean,
area and like
yeah,
kill everything
I
else or
not really. Like fire's okay because fire
right.
burns out. Like
Sure.
those. And yeah, you can make the argument that a nuclear weapon is a big fire,
Oh yeah,
but it
absolutely.
also leaves a lot of radiation
Yep.
and
Yep.
bad. Okay, so we're on to the Epic Space Marine. And uh, this is their questions. Are there also worlds controlled by the realm, specifically meant for one purpose, like a world made specifically to mine the material used for ammunition, or a world whose one purpose is to train military forces? I like this question a lot. I haven't picked my favorite question for the month yet, but that is a contender. So good job, Epic Space Marine. I think what they're pulling from is something that I really, really don't like in other science fiction settings, such as 40K, Star
Oh
Wars,
yeah, they have
etc.,
yep.
where like one planet does one thing, and that it makes zero sense to me at all.
Yep. It well, there's the other thing too. A lot of those planets in those stories have been like they've been doing that on that planet for years, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, man, with how we as real humans go through resources, like that planet would be done in like a couple of weeks or like
Right.
a year or two, and that's it.
Yeah, I think that I think you work to keep your planet diverse, and while a planet might be known for one or a few things that it's especially great at, and it may define it in that way, I think they would be doing lots of
Yep.
on all of these worlds because they're Earth-like worlds. They have a lot of value. So I'm going to say no. I will give a little little bit on that, which is like a mining outpost be a separate, right? If it's just a mining outpost and that's the only thing on that world, I guess you could make the argument that world only does one thing. I That is the one place where I'd be like, yeah, yeah, there are 100% places where the mining guild or the miners union just has like one mining outpost on one place, and it's like not a golden world. It's just a place they can
Right.
successfully mine. They're doing the thing. So yeah, so I
Right.
guess in that one way, but not it's not the entire world, right?
Right.
So
It's you're talking about like realm specific, right? Like we know this
yeah,
is like, oh, there's a mining outpost on that planet, and
yeah,
that's about it. But that doesn't mean the rest of the planet isn't uninhabitable
right,
or could do other things, right?
right,
Like
absolutely. So do the Nifel have a way to make more nodes, or is there a limited amount of nodes? In a similar way to Queenlings, and we'll talk about this more in the next episode, they can make lots and lots of nodes and have control over them. The limitation for them is every time they do it, there is the threat of mutation or change. So if let's say that a prime guard makes a prime guard copy,
sure.
right? Well, that the instant that that separation occurs, So from like if you want to get very, very technical, so you've every single consciousness is a quantum entangled state that's unique. The second they make that copy, it's a new unique state.
Because might treat itself differently,
Of
even though
course it
it's the
would.
same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. That's so the risk is that it immediately says, okay, what if I was it knows what Prime Guard is. It's a great example actually. It knows Prime Guard makes lots of copies for itself to be tear them apart and try to figure out what makes them tick.
Right.
Well, if it does that, it might immediately turn on its creator.
Yeah. Yeah, it could immediately be like, "I don't
Right.
wanna do this anymore,"
No,
right?
no,
Or
no.
like,
I
I
know
could
why you
Yep.
maybe it did, maybe it
Maybe
doesn't,
it
but
doesn't.
like the safe play would be remove the threat.
Yep. Yep.
So there's and then you have Solanimus having the same problem, right? Solanimus is heavily aggressive and dangerous. Well, it makes this heavily aggressive, dangerous copy. Well, that's risky
Ooh.
business,
Ooh, yep,
right?
yep, yep.
Um, yeah, and Aware Spark doesn't really want competition. There's always the risk of compartmentalization, like it makes a copy and they pretend like they're getting along, but they're not sharing information. So what if one of them gets
Oh,
ahead on the path, right?
got it. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So they all have these problems with that. So that's kind of a big limitation. And that leads into the next question, which was, is there a limit to how many mind fragments one mind can have? Like, not really, with the exception of the materials cost and the time to actually manufacture them. But aside from that, that's a challenge they could overcome and make a lot of them. Like I said, the problem is they battle each other, they fight each other, they're distrustful, and the second they make a copy, it's not your copy anymore.
Right. And it's so interesting too because that sort of aspect does come back into like their story as well and why they are the way they are. And so
Yeah,
that'll be my question for the next episode as well because I want to go into this more with you,
yeah.
but I know that we're trying to like not do it just yet, right? Like
No, no,
it's
it'll be the next episode. It'll be the
yeah.
next episode.
So
So is the Noah asks, what is preventing the sovereign from just making his or her original house incredibly powerful and able to keep winning the race and establish a permanent monarchy control over the. So there's a few things in play. Uh, you can't. Well, it's very difficult to cheat at the race for a variety of reasons. It's overseen by an impartial third party. That's the Church of Grade. They have a strong incentive that uh, they maintain that level of control over that part of the process because it's
sure.
directly related to one third of the governmental power.
Okay. And they're not corrupt, right? That's not
Well, corrupt for who? Because they're in every house,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
right?
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
so it's the system staying the way it is. As long as there's a winner, they win. But if anyone questions them or that's ever in doubt, that lessens their power.
Got it. Yeah.
So
Okay.
they stay on the up and up as far as that's concerned. When he is saying makes them incredibly powerful, yes, they do get a portion of the beggar's due, which is all the taxes from all the houses, right?
Sure.
That helps that house
Yep. Yep.
get boosted up. But that doesn't directly translate to winning the race. And something important about the braided, which are the think noble blood folks who can become the sovereign, is there's not a lot of them. Period. Uh, Without giving direct numbers, it is safe to assume that a major house, the bigger of the houses, has at any given time between 1 and 5 braided available
Okay. Okay. Interesting.
because there are so many stringent requirements for it to be possible that just too much can happen, right? They're too young, they're too old, they fail a psychological examination, they get sick, they become disloyal or disenfranchised in some way,
This is any
they
number of
don't want to
things.
do it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Huh. Okay.
yeah. So, they get assassinated, they get
Oh yeah.
killed, right?
Yep. Yep.
Like all
Yep.
kinds of stuff happens. So, get kidnapped in the case of one of them. So,
Ah.
but I mean that takes it off the board, right?
Absolutely.
And so that's those. I think those factors are play. Also, the beggars have very little interest in shenanigans, and they also want to keep the operational systems of the realm functioning as is. So
Well, that's good at least, right?
they
Like,
protect the Palace of the Sovereign. They
yep.
protect the whole world itself and that whole system.
Hmm.
And they're what's trying to kill you when you're trying to win the race. So
Well, there you go.
they don't,
Yeah.
technically speaking, when they do their job best, no one's winning.
I guess that's yeah. Yeah, that's
Right?
okay. Yeah. Yep.
So it's Stalin asks, how long can an augment live for? Do they have an extended lifespan, or do the augmentations only help? So a person in the realm lives about 120 years on average. The years are not extended out, like we don't live 200, 300, 400 years, but the quality of the years we get is,
Oh, excellent. Okay.
yeah. So that's where they got their medical push.
Sure.
So when you're about 20 to 25, biologically, you can start getting the treatments. That you need it once a year. You can do it at pretty much any standard realm clinic. It takes a few days. You go in for a few days, like a few hours, get the
Oh,
treatments done,
sure.
right?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
It's like a genetic, basically a full blood replacement and all kinds of other things.
Okay.
But the long and the short of it is, it's a pretty invasive medical procedure, but they have it down to a
To a
science.
T.
To a science,
Hey.
hey.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that basically doesn't arrest your aging, but greatly reduces it. So a 50-year-old in the realm biologically is about a 35.
Oh, nice. That's like
Yeah.
me.
Oh,
Oh, well, not me. I'm a cyborg, so.
like ageless Drew.
Hilarious. But yeah, did we talk about this too in the first episode with the realm? Like we,
I
yeah,
kind of, but I
because
mean,
yeah, they
yeah,
they
but they ask
retire
for
too,
augments.
and
Augments live the same length of time, maybe a little shorter, but not appreciably.
okay,
And then because they're during their lives, they're often exposed to hazards that a regular person would be exposed to. A
right,
much greater amount of radiation, a much greater amount of toxins, and
yep,
dangers. They get to a lot more worlds than most
right,
people.
a lot more Hexagota and Batra,
Low
and
gravity, high
yep.
gravity. Yeah. I was thinking conditions here,
Oh
like
yeah,
when you get bone spiked in the face,
yeah, bone spikes in the face, exactly,
that will limit your lifespan.
just a little bit.
And the augmentations, their augmentations are combat driven.
Oh, cool, like
So
muscular, like they're more built for war, sort of thing.
yeah, they have a variety of things to help.
Excellent.
And so, do Realm have space truckers? Was a question from Amru. Of course.
Hold on.
Of course, and we just move on. No,
No.
the the truckers that they're speaking of, yeah, there are freighters. There are people who move cargo from point A to point B. Yeah, absolutely. Any functional economy, even a global economy, requires the means to move things from point B. You might have automated trucking, like in really advanced planets, just cargo boxes with a grav plate and then a
Oh yeah, like a
computer
little
guiding
booster
it.
track. Yep, yep.
Yeah. But like once you get into space, things are more dynamic. Yeah, that's what you need, freighter captains and these
Yeah,
folks.
we need the Captain Ellen Ripley's, or not Captain, but Ellen Ripley's of the world, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So Amaru asked, "Do Nightfall get viruses?" That's a very funny question to me.
Is their AI a virus?
Well, they do. They give each other viruses.
Yeah, that's the point, right?
100%. They attack one another. They don't get biological viruses. They get computer code viruses.
Right, right. And they don't like rust or anything, right? Like,
Not really.
yeah,
They don't. They don't really.
take acid baths to clean themselves off or anything like that.
I don't know that they would even care about the cosmetic appearance of their external
Oh,
shell.
that's an interesting question. I
Yeah,
didn't
I
mean to
don't.
ask a question there, but yeah,
No, no, no.
that's
I don't think that would matter to them at all. But to answer the question, yes, but not biology.
cool.
And so with that, we're gonna call it an episode. We've been with you for 45 minutes, and it's been great. On our next episode, we'll be talking about the nightfall at the macro scale. So I think that will be a lot of fun. And what else? Oh yes, and if you have like and subscribe on YouTube to helps us out a lot.
Oh yeah, that's right. The YouTube thing just launched. I saw that.
Yeah, absolutely, the best in
Fun.
tabletop network.
Yeah.
You wanna see more of what we're doing? Go check us out. And also on there, I was just interviewed on Chasing the Narrative. So if you haven't had a chance to have a look at it, Go watch it. It's a lot of fun. It's an interview about how OR got made.
It's a great interview.
Oh, well, thank you so much. All right,
Absolutely.
everybody. You all take care.
Bye bye.
Bye.